Hello everyone, welcome to our new ASMR session. In this episode, we continue the story of Amicia and Hugo and their efforts to find a cure for Hugo's condition. In the last episode, our protagonists, along with their mother, Beatrice, and their friend, Lucas, were forced to leave the town they were staying in. The reason for this was a terrifying event that shook them to the core. A tsunami of rats invaded the town and razed it to the ground, destroying everything in its path. The disturbing part was that somehow the rats responded to Hugo's condition, as if they were attracted to him or somehow controlled. Amicia wanted to find a cure for Hugo as soon as possible, before it caused any more harm. She also knew that none of them was safe anywhere, and that they had to keep moving and stay hidden. Now our protagonists were on a boat headed towards Marseille. They were taking Hugo into the alchemist order that would take care of the boy. Amicia, though, had her doubts about them. She feared that the order had no real intention to help her brother and cure the macula that was slowly killing him. She was duly following her mother's decision, and she trusted her. But she saw what a member of the order, Magister Vaudin, did to her brother, and she didn't like it, not even a bit. Amicia started questioning her mother's judgment, and if she had given up on saving Hugo. Was it really all lost? Was Hugo beyond salvation? Even Lucas, who had been a great support for Amicia, seemed to be now convinced that there was nothing left to do. But Amicia could not shake off the thought that not all was lost. Hugo had a feverish dream, a vision, where he saw an island, and in that vision he was cured. Hugo wanted to get to that place, but no one was actually listening to him. No one but Amicia. Their voyage came to a sudden stop very early, as the river was filled with the breeze and they could not continue. Amicia and Lucas then decided to leave the boat and have a look around. Whilst walking around, Amicia and Lucas ended up in a quarry. The quarry was a harsh and unforgiving place, with jagged rocks and boulders everywhere. But the worst was yet to come, as all of a sudden hordes of rats sprang out from the ground and covered the quarry's floor. The rats were everywhere, scattering and squeaking, and the sight of them made Amicia and Lucas' skin crawl. They were lucky enough to be on a raised platform, so they were safe, for now. However, they had the problem of crossing the quarry to get to the boat again. Amicia didn't hesitate. She immediately began to think of a plan. Using her wits and her trusty sling, she set some hay on fire and opened a way to reach the central part of the area. She then made use of a pulley and more fire to make the rats move away from her path. Lucas stayed behind, as he did not have the skills nor the trusty sling to do what Amicia was doing. To help him, she gave him a stick to set on fire and shoo away the rats. Thanks to her actions, it was safe for Lucas to rejoin her, so they could continue together. Along the way, Amicia also found a workbench that she immediately used to upgrade her gear. She knew that doing that would increase her chances of survival in this harsh environment. Now Amicia and Lucas where the pier where the boat was stuck. A chain, in fact, was blocking its way. Amicia examined the chain and noticed that it was tied to a counterweight on the other side of the river. Luckily, there was a ferry that she could use to get to the other side. But as she approached the ferry, she saw that something was blocking it. She ventured underneath the ferry house and discovered that a corpse was keeping the ferry in place. The sight of the dead body made her feel uneasy. Yet, she braved the muddy waters below the house, filled with dead bodies, and used her strength to free the ferry. Once it was freed, she hopped on it and crossed to the other side. Once there, she managed to cut the counterweight off using her sling, almost injuring herself in the process. The way was now clear and they could continue their journey. However, Amicia was now stuck on the opposite side of the river. Luckily, not too far ahead there was a structure with scaffoldings and pulleys that was connecting one side of the river with the other. With some clever use of the structure, Amicia easily reached the boat. She moved some carts around to be able to climb and get past various obstacles. Nothing too difficult or complicated for her. Whilst doing this, she was wondering if the island Hugo saw in his dream was indeed real, and if it was, how to find it. She knew that the journey ahead would be filled with even more challenges, but she was determined to find a cure for his brother's illness, no matter what it took. As soon as Amicia arrived at the boat, a dangerous situation quickly unfolded. A group of bandits led by a man named Arnaud attacked them. These were the same bandits Amicia and Lucas met before, when they were searching for Magister Vaudin. There was still an open score to settle between them. She quickly grabbed the crossbow mounted on the boat and defended the group as they sailed through the Bandy River. Archers were shooting from the top of the gorge as well as the bridges along the river path. Amicia did not miss a shot, and just when they thought they made it out safely, an arrow struck Joseph on his neck. He collapsed immediately, lifeless. Now the boat was just going adrift, but not for long. Arnaud's men grabbed the boat with harpoons and pulled it to shore, trapping them. It looked like the group was now at their mercy, but Amicia was not beaten yet. She knew that she had to act fast if they were to survive. She quickly grabbed the crossbow and fought her way through the enemy, using all her skills and quick thinking. Her objective was to reach where the harpoons were tied, cut the ropes, and free the boat. Carefully aiming with the sling and the crossbow, she quickly dispatched the enemies, blocking her way. She managed to reach the ropes, but that's when Arnaud caught up with her. He was a huge armored soldier, and she knew she wouldn't be able to take him down. Her only option was to run as fast as she could. Luckily, she was able to lose him, but Arnaud was not giving up so easily. In fact, he headed back to the boat to take everyone hostage and lure Amicia out. Now she had to make it back to the boat before Arnaud. Amicia sneaked past some of the bandits that were looking for her, using all her stealth and agility to evade detection. but when someone spotted her, she decided that it was best to run instead. She arrived at the boat at the same time as Arnaud. This time, she had no other choice but to fight. Unfortunately, he was too strong for her, and in fact, he quickly overpowered her with a bash on her head. That's when it happened. Hugo started crying, seeing Amicia on the ground and Arnaud about to kill her. He then rushed towards them with the intention to save his sister. Moved by desperation and anger, the young boy literally commanded the rats to burst out of the ground and attack Arnaud. Seeing what was happening and scared by the number of the rats that appeared all of a sudden, Arnaud retreated, leaving Amicia alone. A few seconds later, Amicia came to herself, gathered her strength, and comforted Hugo. As Hugo calmed down, so did the rats. In all this commotion, the boat cut loose from the harpoons and started to move. Beatrice hurried Amicia and Hugo to jump on it, but the decision was already made. Amicia and Hugo stayed behind and watched the boat drift away. She was now determined more than ever to find the island and save Hugo her own way. Amicia and Hugo were all alone now. They left behind their home, their friends, and everything they had ever known. As they walked through the woods, Amicia couldn't help but feel a sense of hopelessness creeping in. But then she remembered something that gave her hope. She remembered a painting she had seen in Magister Baudin's studio. It was a painting of the island that Hugo dreamed of. This meant that the island was real, not just the result of a feverish dream. She told Hugo about the painting as they stopped by a stream to clean her wound and apply a bandage. When Hugo heard her words, he smiled, and for the first time in a long time, he felt a glimmer of hope. As they continued on their journey, they reached a clearing. In front of them was a beautiful meadow filled with wild flowers. The sight was breathtaking, and for a moment all their troubles and fears seemed to fade away. Hugo loved flowers, and the sight of the meadow filled him with a sense of wonder. He had almost forgotten how beautiful the world could be. The two of them even had a race to the nearest tree. Although Amicia was still weak from the bash on her head and could not really run, she was happy to see Hugo having fun and forgetting at least for a moment all the troubles they had been through. A few moments later, they heard distant chants. It was almost surreal, as they were in the middle of nowhere. As they approached the area where the sounds were coming from, Amicia and Hugo saw a camp. It was a group of pilgrims who were headed to Rome. There were quite a few of them, families with children, all eager to reach Rome in time for the following year's jubilee. Amicia thought that someone in the camp might be able to help them and maybe give them some direction to the island. The problem was that she didn't know anything else about it, besides that it had two large mountains. As they entered the camp, they were greeted by the warm smiles of the pilgrims. The camp was bustling with activity. There were people cooking, others tending to the animals, and some were setting up tents. Children were running around, playing games and laughing. It was a peaceful scene. Amicia and Hugo approached one of the pilgrims, a woman. She listened to their story and told them that they needed to speak with Perrault, the leader of the group. To find him, they had to simply follow the chants as he was officiating a mass.
Where there will be thousands and thousands of people there.
Perrault seemed a kind enough man and was willing to help. He didn't know about the island, but he had a map of the Mediterranean Sea they could use. Amicia and Hugo felt relieved, as finally something was going in the right direction. Unfortunately, that joyous feeling didn't last long. Whilst they were talking, they heard a commotion nearby. Some soldiers arrived at the camp, and they were looking for a boy and a girl. Amicia went pale. Perrault immediately understood he was talking to the boy and the girl the soldiers were looking for. Being a holy man and believing in the redemption of the soul, he decided to help Amicia, regardless of what she might have done to be wanted by soldiers. He knew the camp was big and many people joined them on a daily basis. There was a big chance, therefore, that no one really noticed Amicia and Hugo. He quickly guided the siblings to the camp as far away as possible from the soldiers. When they reached the other side of the camp, Perrault pointed them in the direction of the sea and waved goodbye. To reach the sea, Amicia and Hugo had to cross a quarry. Unfortunately, even before reaching it, they were spotted by some soldiers and had to run. Amicia was still weak and debilitated by the wound on her head, but she wasn't going to give up. Hugo was too important to her to let the soldiers take him. As they reached the quarry, they hid inside one of the many tunnels dug into the mountain. There were dozens of those tunnels, all connected with one another. It was like a labyrinth, and at every corner there was a soldier looking for them. Amicia felt like she was blind, not being able to see where the soldiers were or how they were moving. Hugo, though, could. It was something he could not really explain, but he could sense the rats in the vicinity, and through them he could see where the soldiers were. That proved to be extremely helpful. Amicia and Hugo sneaked past the soldiers, having a perfect view of their opponent's actions. They waited for the exact moment to move, and when necessary, they threw some stones to distract them and make them move away from where they had to go. It was very risky, but it worked. They managed to exit the tunnels and reach an open area. However, more soldiers were patrolling around. It seemed like a whole army was looking for them. Amicia wondered why. Was this really necessary with a war going on? In this new area there were patches of tall grass that Amicia and Hugo could use to hide from the soldiers. As they moved through the tall grass, they could hear the distant sounds of the soldiers calling out to each other, searching for them. Amicia and Hugo knew that they had to be careful and move slowly to avoid detection.
We can make it.
But with Hugo's ability, they were able to navigate the area with relative ease. And in those moments when they could not hide, Amicia did not hesitate to use her trusty sling to take down the enemies before they sounded the alarm. Quickly they reached what looked like a workshop and entered. Inside the building they felt safe, but their relief was short-lived, as they heard the sound of soldiers approaching. As soon as they reached the warehouse in the back, soldiers arrived as well. They had not spotted them yet, but they had to act fast. Amicia was weak though. She started feeling dizzy and suddenly collapsed to the ground. Hugo tried to wake her up, but she could not continue. With Amicia unconscious, Hugo knew he had to do something. He noticed that there were rats scurrying around the workshop. That's when he tried to control them. He quickly took control of a swarm of rats and made them attack the guards. It was horrible, but there was no other way. As the rats swarmed the guards, Amicia slowly came to her senses. Now there were no more soldiers in the workshop, so they could just cross to the other side. Making proper use of the fire from the torches and the braziers that were lying around, Amicia made the rats move away from the path, so that they could safely reach the exit. On their way they noticed many fabrics on the shelves, so they realized they were in a textile workshop. Amicia's bandage was now all bloodied and dirty, so Hugo suggested that she change it for a clean one. So, very gently, he applied a new bandage of red color. It was moments like these that gave Amicia the strength and determination to continue. Amicia and Hugo stepped outside the workshop. Now they were in the dye works. The area was vast and sprawling, and they had to cross it to the other side. To make things worse, soldiers were patrolling the area. And, as if that wasn't enough, the rats were present in large numbers, scurrying through the shadows and squeaking loudly. Initially, Amicia and Hugo could sneak past using the tall grass as cover. They crept along the edges of the vats, trying to stay out of sight. There were also shacks here and there that could be used to avoid the soldiers. They would duck inside, holding their breath and waiting for the soldiers to pass. Unfortunately though, the last part of the area was almost totally without any type of cover. If they tried to cross it, they would be spotted immediately. At this point, there seemed to be no other solution. Hugo used again his newfound ability to take control of a swarm of rats. He closed his eyes, focusing on the rats around them, and suddenly they were moving, following his command. He guided the rats towards the guards, one by one, letting them bite and claw at the guards. It was dangerous for Hugo to use this ability. The longer he controlled the rats, the more he felt he was losing his grip on reality. It was like he could become one of them. That idea made him shiver, but he knew there was no other way to get out of the situation they were in. With the way now clear, Amicia and Hugo were able to sneak past the last remaining guards and reach what looked like an open-air deposit. They were not alone though. The beast was waiting for them. Amicia had first met the beast when she was searching for herbs for Magister Vaudin with Lucas. Back then, the beast captured them. But this time, Amicia was determined not to let that happen again. As the beast charged towards them, Amicia reached for a pot, and she set it on fire. She threw it at him with all her might, watching as the flame engulfed him. He was fully armored, and the flames only slowed him down. But it was enough for Amicia to act. She quickly pulled out a sling and hit the armor with precision. As she hoped, the armor was loosened and the flame burned the beast to death. The sight was gruesome, and Amicia felt a deep sadness for taking a life. But she knew it was necessary to protect her brother. The fight had taken a toll on Amicia. Her wound was bleeding again, and she felt dizzy. As if on cue, more soldiers arrived on the scene, alerted by the commotion. They were almost surrounded and Amicia had no strength left to fight. She then turned to her brother and regrettably she asked him to do it again, to take control of the rats and save them. Hugo was scared, but he knew there was no other option. So he commanded the rats once again and let them loose on the guards. One by one, the guards were devoured by the vermin. But this time Hugo lost control. His anger and fear overwhelmed him, and a huge wave of rats flooded the area. They were coming from everywhere, the ground, the tunnels. It was like a lake breaking a dam and descending on the valley below, dragging everything with it. Amicia gathered her remaining strength and took Hugo up in her arms. She knew they had to reach a safe spot above ground, possibly up on top of the rocks overlooking the area. She almost made it, pushing Hugo up and then trying to climb herself. But she was too weak. She couldn't make it. It seemed all lost for her. But then, out of nowhere, someone arrived. Was Amicia saved by the mysterious stranger? We will find out in the next episode. I hope you've enjoyed and that this ASMR session was useful for you. So if you liked the video, please like, subscribe or leave a comment. And I hope I can see you again for another episode of Plague Tale or any of the other games that I play. Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.